Okay. Hey there, Bob from Oregon's Constant Gardener. Welcome to the OCG Fam Show to you, my YouTube buddies. What's going on? We got Scott. We're doing Viewer Questions, Episode 3. Scott, what's up?
What's up, Bob?
I don't know. Still here. Still here. Just hanging out in my garage.
I watch your show with your buddy.
Which one? Oh, Derek? My wife says, what are you selling?
Yeah, or
nothing.
Or is that just a peer counseling group?
I think he just goes on there so I can interrupt him.
No, that's amazing. I mean, your sense of humor is awesome on it, and bless his heart, he just doesn't have a sense of. I mean, he's not. You're much more of a character than he is.
I know. He's the one that's pushing the whole thing, though. He's like, let's go live stream. I'm like, okay.
Okay, you want me to just sit here and tell you why you're fucking stupid? No problem. Hey, you know, whenever I do that, we get an adult rating.
I know. Well, I assume it's that. I don't know what it is, but yeah, we get the 18 pluses.
My kid explained it to me because he does train stuff, like model trains, and and model trains aren't for kids; they're from like old ass people.
Yeah.
But if you do a model train and you put it on YouTube, they immediately say it's for kids, so they get demonetized. They get no advertising dollars. They don't get pushed. They get nothing. So they start every episode on model trains with shit, poop, fart, shit. So then it immediately goes to adulthood, and then they actually get their advertising and their push polls and stuff. It's pretty interesting. It's like, we don't like swearing on this program, but we're going to have to start this episode with, you're a piece of shit, because that way it gets us into a space where we can actually monetize and get advertising.
That's awesome.
Because you're not allowed to advertise towards children. YouTube won't let you
make money
off of children. You can't advertise with children. They don't push you on it. It's terrible.
Well, they make the money, though.
I only swear to keep us on the air.
You're just doing your part.
I am. I figure we start there, we end there, and there's just no mystery.
Handled.
Done.
So, you want some questions?
That's what you're telling me.
I think we got some pretty good ones. Diamond Sky said, I just fed last night, 760 ppm. Tonight, her slurry is 360, down 2 inches down at 6.6 pH. My VPD is 1.2, 82 F, 55 RH. Her soil is...
Relative humidity, 82 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay.
Is 1.2, so everything's awesome. Everything's great. That means everything should be happy. They're hungry. That means that your environment's so great. I would probably either move on to the next stage of your food recipe. So if you're in like late veg, go to late veg, add more Medusa, Gaia, and maybe some Perk. Or if you're in bloom, maybe go from the early to mid bloom stage and just start ramping it up. If that continues to be a problem and your slurries still stay low, I'm dealing with one guy right now who started our line after already being in starvation mode, getting the parts per million back up in the soil, because the plants are so accepting of eating every bit that they're getting, they're just consuming it and leaving nothing behind, and he's trying to like double feed and triple feed, and I'm like, I mean, don't triple feed, don't hurt the plants by trying to build the soil back up, put in an organic meal or something, like the One Shot, or just go and get a little, bone meal, feather meal, something to put in there as a backup food source. That way, it'll balance out that ppm in the soil that is measuring lower after a feeding, and it'll start helping that stockpile excess foods.
So will I see any difference in my slurry from the One Shot, or is it somewhat inert to that measurement?
Oh, no. I mean, it's always, because it's all micronized when we begin with it, so as it's being hydrated, it's falling off, and you will get skewed numbers from it. But if you're constantly at 200 every slurry, you put One Shot top dress in at, let's say, 2 tablespoons per gallon, like the label instructs, it's going to take you to like 450 to 500 parts per million in your slurries from here until it starts really reducing itself. But it's not like it's an excessive amount at 400 to 500. You're still being able to feed at 7, 9, 1200 parts per million. Have that as your backup of 400 to 500 parts per million in the soil. It just puts in a reserve for the days they're just eating more than you can give them.
Okay. So now he went on here. He said her soil is still wet. How can I get her more food? So you're saying put the One Shot in there to feed for that. But what about the wetness of the soil? Is that a drainage issue probably?
Well,
or is
one shot would also encourage more microbial activity, which will encourage more temperature, which will encourage more evaporation and consumption. This, I'm assuming, sounds like they are probably in veg, and if that's the case, foliar feeding is always, especially when your root development hasn't fully filled out that pot, they're still developing in that stage of life. A lot of people tend to water a little heavy in the veg cycle, so their soil stays moist longer. That's why foliar feeding is so important. Is if you can't give them the root feedings every other day during veg, foliar feeding them every day, it keeps them on that feeding cycle while those roots are developing so that they can take more hydration in the root zone. So I would say if you're not in mid-flowering, I'd be foliar feeding to get them those extra ppms to keep that growth stimulation going. But if you're tragically at that, lower ppms in the soil throughout the whole cycle, a little one-shot in there is going to be a good idea too.
So is drainage not the only issue of why your soil is wet? I mean, if there's not a lot going on in there, the water's going to hang out longer than if you've got microbial life and you got stuff cooking?
Yeah, well, if you had a cup, like this cup here without the straw, nothing's going to come out of this cup.
Yeah. The plant eating is a big factor. It down
pretty quick.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, every little root is a straw, and if you have 9 straws in a 10-gallon Capri Sun bag, you're only going to get so many slurps off of 9 straws, but you make 6,800 straws, well, that Capri Sun bag's gone in seconds. So it really just, if you don't have the root mass and you're watering a full volume of soil and the roots are tiny, that soil's not drying up until it either evaporates, overheats, or your roots develop out into that region of the soil. So, feeding, especially in the early stages, right after transplants, try not to overwater at transplants or early veg stages because they don't have the root system to handle that yet. So babying, we talk about the less volume, more frequently model. That's really just the model for the early stages. So you're maintaining the little plant in this vast thing of soil. Just this little guy's going to get watered and fed for the first week or so because the roots aren't all the way over here. They're just right in the middle.
Drainage is a minor factor compared to everything else in getting the water out of the plant. Okay.
Well, and unless you're hydroponic, then you want to just flood and drain and flood and drain. But when you're in a good potting mix that you're trying to carry all the way through, the drainage isn't the issue. There's a lack of life in the soil is the issue. So if you don't overwater at the beginning, now the problem is if you overwater too early, now you're just playing catch up for the whole veg cycle because you're waiting 4 to 5 days between waterings and feedings because they're so saturated you don't want to overwater that soil. So we really encourage people don't overwater in the earliest stage because you have to play catch up all the way through veg just to get them to where you want them to be.
So in this particular case, just guessing, same amount of food, less water would be a good strategy?
Yeah, I mean, mix up your full gallon. Instead of giving a full gallon every 4 days, give them a quarter of a gallon every 2 days. I mean, you'll notice the difference in the weight of the soil. If it's, super wet after 4 days of feeding them a full gallon of food, that same amount of gallons fed 4 times in a week versus once a week is far more efficient for the plant to get 4 quarts throughout 7 days versus 1 gallon once every 7 days.
So you'd still be using your teaspoon, tablespoon situation. You'd just be using it in less water more often. No. Okay.
No. So I'd take my gallon of water and I'd mix up my food. Teaspoon, pH it. Then last week I gave this whole plant a full gallon, and it's now ready for another one. Well, this time I'm only going to give them a quart of this mix.
Okay.
So now they got a quart of the gallon, the gallon of mix, but I'm splitting that 1 gallon amongst 4 plants versus giving them all to 1 plant. So now tomorrow, all 4 plants might need another quart, but because the roots are developing out into the soil looking for more moisture and more food, so I mix up the exact same early veg feeding recipe. But I only mix up a quart, a gallon, and I feed each one a quart, if that makes sense.
I gotcha.
Same strength food, less volume in the pot at the early stages of growth.
So I'm still following my recipe. I'm just, instead of doing a gallon at a teaspoon, I'm doing a quarter of a gallon at a quarter teaspoon, or whatever the measurements might be. More often than that.
Plant,
Yeah. Okay. All right.
And then this will pop up directly below after this answer is, well, I made up a whole gallon. I only needed to use a half a gallon. Will this product still be good tomorrow?
No.
So,
Yeah,
I mean,
good.
It will be. I mean, it can be. It will be. It's fine. It's not as available. The calcium has reacted. It's created bonds. It's become less of an available plant food source, but it's still a microbial food source. So you can still use it a couple days after. It's not ideal, but it won't be wasteful to go ahead and water it in. Check the pH. Excuse me. Had a little lunch earlier. Check the pH because often with that limestone in the Olympus Up from the first pH adjustment, let's say yesterday, well, the longer that sits with all these acids that were in the product, our fertilizers, that pH is going to rise up because this is going to, basically become the carbonic acid for the limestone. So you'll see it drift in your pH. So don't just blindly take yesterday's food and water it in because the pH could be 6.7 or 7.2. So readjust your pH and then use it.
Okay. Fast as Banshee 96. Why does Scott say Eastside Michigan won't like 4-Shot? Just curious, as I am in Eastside Michigan. Love the show. You said you were talking about.
Did you see on the Nectar for the Gods Growers that video I posted yesterday?
No.
So there's a whole, I think it's a National Geographic. A customer sent it to us. It's in another question that one of our Q&As. It was in one of the comments, but it was a link to how the Great Lakes were made and the difference between limestone and dolomite lime. And they show Michigan. It's just, Michigan is calcium carbonate, and so 4-Shot won't be bad for them. It just isn't going to be like, whoa, look how impressive it is because you have built-in, alkalinity right in everything you guys do in Michigan. So there's a link. I put the link in on the Facebook group that has the full 2-hour video on how the Great Lakes are formed with limestone and how it reacts, and it shows you a great example of like dolomitic lime shale and limestone shale, and you put this acid on both, and it shows you exactly what we're talking about, how this breaks down, what it does, the reaction that's occurring, and why dolomitic lime is not what we're looking for.
So it's just a geological oddity, and your answer was with regard to alkalinity and that sort of thing. Someone could go get some 4-Shot and plant their plant in it. They're going to be happy for the most part. It's just that
they're going to pay more for basically always having it in their water source. So if they buy number 4 and add 1 little pound of 1-Shot to it, they've got a version of 4-Shot I'd use in Michigan.
So that's the thing too. That's where I was going with this. I didn't realize it until just now. So when people are like, give me the 4-Shot, give me the 4-Shot, give me the 4-Shot. 4-Shot is not number 4 soil and 1-Shot as you may have originally intended it to be. It's moved into something that's got the limestone to it to make it an alkalinity fixer as well.
We've added Chimera to it. Yeah, we've added the Chimera. We've added the Axis to that. So we've got that diatom, which not only acts as a drainage, but it acts as water retention, and it also acts as a silicate, like a very effective silicate, and all in mineral form. So between the Axis, the Chimera, the 1-Shot, and the number 4 mix, it's just enhanced. But we're getting farms all the way through to the end of feeding at a full cycle and aggressive feeding and ending up at like 6-8 pH in the soil at the end of a monster feeding run. So that's awesome. This is the same farm that's had the same issues down to 5.5, 5.4 at the end of a bloom run because they just couldn't keep their pH up.
So waiting for 4-Shot, making my own 4-Shot would... numbered 4 soil, 1-Shot, and I'd put some garden lime, the whatchamacallit stuff that we get from...
Down to Earth?
Down to Earth. Would that be... You've got some more goodies in there, but that's largely what you're looking for?
It would get you through, absolutely.
Okay. Wowza! If I have it right, limestone will be a silent guard and will only activate if it needs to. We talked about that last time. Is that the case 100%, or can you talk about that?
93%, yes.
Okay.
So limestone, like calcite, C-A-L-C-I-T-E, calcite would be your silent guard. totally inactive, totally inert until acid hits it. Calcite is the predominant element in limestone. So limestone is just a softened version of calcite, calcium limestone. So often when you buy limestone garden lime, there'll be a fine powder that's in this pellet that the first time you water, it's going to activate. And it's going to show you because your water is 6,4, which is an acid in all, by definition.
Yeah, sure.
So when you first wash over there and you do a slurry 2 days later, your pH in your soil might be 7.1, 7.2. Don't panic because that's the first rinse off of the soluble form of that calcium limestone. As that limestone is kind of worked through over the first few days, the pH is going to kind of stabilize again, and then the limestone really only activates when your pH is starting to slip lower. So yes, it is kind of a hidden guardian in a sense. Calcite would be the pure form of that, where it won't activate at all unless you have acid, where limestone is going to slowly leach out no matter what to make sure you never have acid.
So it's something of a time release because there's some dusty stuff on the... It's naturally packed tighter as you get into a ball. The middle
it comes in this big bag of rocks, and as it's shifting and moving, and
it's breaking itself up.
Dust, and that becomes high pH dust.
I got
There's no holding power to the dust. It'll give you a false high reading for a second, but then it'll balance right back out to where it was.
And then the rest is just sitting in there hanging out till it's needed.
Yeah, and if you live in a region where your alkalinity isn't diving and your pH isn't diving, then this probably will never really activate and you won't fully utilize the limestone in the foreshot. But if you're in Illinois or you're in Kansas or Kentucky or Missouri, this stuff is going to save your butt mid-bloom because it's going to all activate by the time you get into bloom. When you're feeding super heavy with all of our foods, it's always going to have that acidic undertone. That's going to activate all this stuff and keep you in the clear.
So if you are in Michigan or something of that nature, or you're using a certain water, that's fine. You might still use 1-shot and number 4 soil, but you probably wouldn't use 4-shot?
You wouldn't. I wouldn't spend the extra money.
It wouldn't hurt,
if I didn't need to use it. It won't hurt a thing, but it's going to be $3 or $4 more a bag on the retail level because it's a lot more stuff in it, and you don't necessarily need it. So really, number 4, a bag of 1-shot, and your regular fertilizers will be just fine in Michigan. The rest of you people probably need to look into both.
So this is funny. The question that just came up is the question I had. Red State Rebel said, how does this work if you're reusing your soil? This is about amending soil for limestone is what I wrote down there. So if you were going to be reusing your soil in those situations, would you put more limestone in? Would you put 1-shot in? What would you do to recharge your soil?
Well, it all depends on what the cycles have been all the way through. What have my last 4 rounds have been? Traditionally, am I hitting 5.5 in mid-bloom? Then yeah, you absolutely want to re-amend your used potting soil with plenty of limestone. If you get all the way down, you got your soil all churned up, and you do a slurry test, and it comes out 7.4. Clearly, you have alkalinity built into your water system, so you don't need to be adding more limestone because all that's going to do is start to compound, and you'll start seeing pHs in the 8s because you're adding more limestone to your already rich calcium water. So I always just slurry everything after it's all broken down. You got all the roots out. It's been sitting for a few days. Take a slurry, and if you're, check them. If you're at like 100 parts per million and the pH is 5.5, yeah, you're going to want to amend it with some meals, with some 1-shot or some whatever, and then add in some more calcium limestone to make sure you're buffering that, not only buffering the pH, but buffering the capacity for that soil to offer up alkalinity during the next round of feed cycles.
Okay, so I got my soil. It's good to go for the most part, other than I'm going to need to put some 1-shot in there to get some more kind of food to it, that sort of situation. And then if I have an alkalinity issue, I'm going to need some limestone. Yeah. So is it possible that I might do a slurry test and my pH is fine, but then I get a couple weeks in and I start seeing it drop and put some limestone in then? Or is that...
Well, let's say, put it this way. Our soil off the line is 7.1.
Right.
Like when we make it fresh 7-1, knowing darn well it's probably going to drop maybe to 6, 7s when it gets watered heavily.
Okay.
Which is fine. That's what we want.
Yeah.
We're aiming 6, 5, 6, 7. Because a lot of people, they've read the Bible from Nectar or from the growers that made the Bible, and and we're going to have to amend this at some point, but the slurry numbers in there, are 6.2 to 6.4 pH, and 250 to 400. I forget what they even are in the book because everything's transitioning. When we first came up with all those original slurry numbers, you have to imagine we're coming into an industry where the average feeding cycle is 5.5 pH to 6.1 pH on the high side. And here we are going, man, if you're feeding at 6.1, you're not getting any of our stuff. So we're like 6.1 in the veg, but you're going to be up at 6.6 in bloom.
Trying to lean them into it.
You can see where we're tending to want to steer you, but try to get an entire industry to go, we're changing everything you're going to do, and you're going to do it our way. They're not going to listen, and they're not going to go, well, I'm going to go from everything at 5 and go to everything at 7. It would never work. So we've been slowly bringing people into the higher pH range so they can experience the alkalinity piece of this whole thing. Where do we even get from there? How do we get here?
I don't know. I do not remember what I asked you.
Well,
it's all good.
On the edge of my seat for the Stay tuned.
No, I think we.
Because you said when you do the slurry and your pH is...
Oh, yes.
You're fine. Well, the downfall is most people think 6.4 pH is fine. For brand new soil, going into veg, heading for an aggressive 12 to 16 week bloom, full cycle, 6.4 starting soil pH is going to guarantee you're going to be at 5, 7 by the second week of bloom.
Sure.
So anything under 6.7, I'd be adding a little bit of limestone. Anything under 6.5, I'd be adding a lot of limestone.
How high is too high for the soil, ready to go at the start of a grow?
If you're past 7.4, then you're going to want to react that and get it down into at least 7 or lower.
Okay.
7 pH is pretty common for fresh potting soil that has not a lot of microbial activity living or active or have been fed or watered. So fresh, when people come and say, hey, I got a bag of your soil, it's 400 parts per million, 7.1, I can show them that that's what it was when it came off the line. So that's great. That's what we want, is that high, because we know you're going to torture feed them at 6.0 or 6.1.
So if I amend my soil's 6.7 after a run, I'm reusing it. I throw some one shot in there. I throw some limestone in there because I'm thinking I want to push that up. Am I going to get a slurry after I do that, a crazy slurry, and I'm not even going to worry about that slurry number? Can I put too much limestone in?
Nothing's activated.
Right.
So your first slurry is going to... I would never mix it up and go, did I hit the mark? Well, you're not going to know until all the biology is activated, consuming, and then cycling through the nutrition built into the soil. I would say after a couple weeks, start checking your slurries again, just so you can get it all hydrated and moving to see what the microbes are doing to it.
So I'm putting my limestone in, and it's like my salt shaker with the lid loose, and I dump in way too much. It's got crazy too much limestone in there. Have I screwed myself and I'm going to have a 9 pH? It's not going to go too far, is it?
A 1 gallon pot or a 40 gallon pot?
I gotcha. So you can use too much limestone.
It's a measurement. I'd scoop it off. And really, like you're saying, if you're at 6.7, I wouldn't be putting more limestone in necessarily. I'd probably be waiting for it to drop from 6.7 to 6.5. Then I'd top dress a little more to make sure it goes the other direction versus drop more. But anything over 6.5, I would leave alone and then top dress before I go into bloom. If anything below 6.5, I'd be adding more limestone to the composting mix.
I gotcha. Ounces, not gallons. You throw it a little bit in there. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you can put better a little too little, and then to do a little of the top dress a little later than to freak out and worry that you're gonna, you're not.
Oddly enough, with limestone, it's one of those again, like we were talking about. It doesn't really take over because it needs acid to become available. So out of all the things to accidentally overdo, limestone's the shit.
Okay.
If you overdo feather meal, it's probably not going to be great. Blood meal will burn your plant. Guano would kill stuff. So a good mineral, the nice thing is that if the plants don't want it, they're not going to take it. If they don't need it, they're not going to use it. So.
Okay. Good answer. Pat Leaf. I moved, and now I'm dealing with all this Chicago City... Oh, I moved, and now I'm dealing with all this, period. Chicago City water was great for Nectar for the Gods. Superb, soft water, not as much. Suburb is probably what he meant there. Actually, it says suburb. I'm just reading it wrong. I don't think that's how you spell that word, but I don't know how either. So we're going to keep moving. Not as much. It's lower...
URB.
Me, I'm messing up. It's the verbs. Oh, I see where I went wrong. He S-U-B-E-R-B. So that's why I got superb out of that. Suburbs.
Not the suburbs, but
the suburbs.
It's a superb soft water versus the suburbs hard water.
Yeah.
Tomato.
The suburbs are where I lived. Everybody had a red line BMX bike. There was a 7-Eleven on every corner. It was the suburbs.
Yeah, I used to buy weed in a little sandwich bag twisted off like a crack rock.
Those were the days.
Good old days.
It's lower ppm, but I'm having the issue Scott described months ago. Mid-flower PG tanks to pH. Yeah. Tanks to 5859, and no matter how many flushes of 7.0 Olympus I give it, it just stays at 5.8 to 6.0. The plant is locked out. It finishes up consuming its leaves, but the final product is not what it should be.
Nope, shouldn't be.
Soft water.
Huh?
Soft water in the city is the same as soft water from your water softener, where it's salty, or what? I'm sorry.
I'm not sure that whole part of the issue. I don't know, because I think it's a treatment issue. If he's out in the country with a water softener, that's what's happening there. Or
But he says in the suburbs, he says the water's just softer.
Yeah, because they probably treated at the plant on its way to a spot. So but really for him at this point, because they're basically filtering his water pretty heavily for it to do a pH dive like that. So they've taken most of the calcium carbonate right out of his water source where he's living now. I mean, the best bet would be to, basically do the limestone top dress. He would be something that like a cut per 10 gallons is going to be ideal. The Chimera for him, hey, there's a new store in North Chicago area called Aroma.
Uh-huh.
And they have a bunch of Chimera samples on their way. They'll be there probably like Thursday next week. I would look up the name Aroma. Let me see if I can... great guy. I spent like 4 hours on the FaceTime with him and his staff.
Nice.
Very passionate. Do you remember Kevin from Botanic Assassin, Kevin?
Yeah.
So Kevin he's a Chicago dude.
Okay.
And he does a lot of talks on Nectar and Nextlight and some seed companies.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And he's a consultant there.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to start doing some classes there amongst other shops as well. So I would run up. I'm going to get you the name of the store and the town they're in. Sorry.
Are they on the store finder yet?
Probably not. I'm not that smart.
Well, send me a note.
Wheeling Road, Wheeling, Illinois, 668 Wheeling Road, Aroma Grow Shop.
Nice.
Little plug for them. Yeah. But, they reached out for a seminar online. We got into talking, and they became one of those stores where it's like, okay, here's a bunch of samples, here's a bunch of new stuff, here's some foreshot, here's some,
Go nuts.
I want these guys to, because of their passion, I'm really excited for them to succeed.
Yeah.
And if I can get customers there to listen to Kevin's a freaking wealth of knowledge. The guy's got more passion than me. Well worth listening to, and he's not full of crap either, so it's kind of nice. But go check out that Wheeling Road Aroma. Okay. They got some stuff coming in that can help that question.
So when you see this situation, though, this is a limestone top dress situation, and the 7.0 Olympus Up flushes are probably not... If it's not working...
What's happening there is he's keeping up, but he's missing the feed on the feed side. So he's trying to correct with the pH,
But he's not
pHing on the feed.
Right.
So the plants are like, I can't eat anything because now the pH is here at my head and here on my feet, and what I need is right here for eating. So this is a situation that I deal with a lot right now because of our stupid show, and everybody's trying to figure out what's going on, and alkalinity's poop because we've now destroyed pH. So here's the reality is, when somebody comes to me in week 3 on in flower, to me, if you put limestone in right now, it'd be fine, but it's going to take 10 days for it to activate and actually start to rise up. So you'll be mad at me after day 5 because the pH hasn't changed. Well, it's a rock, not very soluble. Give it a moment or two. It'll start creeping up. This is why I like people to do their top dress right before going into bloom, because it's already activated when the flowering starts before the pH drops. So for this situation, let's say I'm in week 4 flower in an 8-week plant. My pH is 5.7. I can't get it back up. This is when you do the carbonated water trick. And that is the mix up your regular food, pH it all the way up to 7.5 to 8.0 with Olympus up.
Okay.
Let it sit for a second, stirred. Then bring it back down to 6.4 with Perrier water, just carbonated water, a soda stream water, whatever you have. That drops down the pH back to usable, but it takes that 8 pH of limestone and converts the carbonate into a bicarbonate, so it's not robbing from the soil anymore, but it's instead depositing in the soil alkalinity, which should help start buffering it. In any case, it keeps the plants super fed and aggressive, even though your root system's living in a less than ideal pH setting. It limps you through, it gets you to the end. I've seen some spectacular fruit from it, but you still want to fix the whole issue next time so you're not chasing it with Perrier water.
The Perrier water is get it done now so I can get back to where I am, but it's not the long-term solution.
Well, exactly. And it's a better solution than I'm going to do this and then add Hades and then play this game of phosphoric acid, limestone reactions and this, because it can overshoot so hard. Carbonic acid it's rain. I mean, rainwater is carbonic acid. It's CO2 injected water. That's all it is.
Okay. G-Rizzy. I'm 5.8 pH, EC 0.6, Spartan RO, plus Ollie the night before, comes out 6.4, EC 0.9. I don't even understand the question. You understand what he's asking?
All right, 20 hours ago, let's see. I'm 5.8 pH, so his EC 0.6 is what? It's 320 ppms, I think.
Let me see.
I got a translator.
Okay.
What are you doing?
I have my little thing. So is it, let's see, what do you say, 0.6? 0.6 would be 300.
Yeah. What did I say, 320? I wasn't too far off.
You're pretty close. That's probably right if you go on the other scale, on the 700 scale.
So he's at 5.8, 300.
Yeah.
RO, so no alkalinity in his water.
And then he's going up to like 450. The night before... I don't understand what I'm at 5.8 EC Spartan RO plus Ollie the night before comes out.
Oh, so he puts the Olympus up in the 5.8.
Yes.
Well, because see what you did? You've taken your acid at 5.8, you've added limestone, you've activated it, so now the pH has gone up because limestone reacted with your acid and the EC went up a little bit because you freed up a bunch of radicals from the stone. So
that's why.
It's chemistry.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I bet you your CO2 in your room went up about 400 to 600 parts per million in that reaction because that's just releasing CO2 out of that reservoir.
Okay. Good answer.
I'm hoping. If not, he'll let us.
He'll let us know. He's like, no, that wasn't even the question, you morons.
Yeah. What are you retards saying in there?
And what are you doing with that stick? I don't get it.
Blue. What's in that cup?
Okay, easy to slip. General question, slurry testing. This could be a long question. I will send an email with detail. I have 6 plants with 4 different cultivars in a tent. Whenever I am having issues, I do slurries to try to figure out what is going on. When everything is going okay, how often should I slurry? And if everything is going okay, I may only slurry 1 or 2 plants. Any reason to check them all? How do I interpret slurries? What are the ranges that you will see with number 4 soil and using Nectar of the Gods nutrients?
It's your philosophy, Grasshopper.
So he's got four different plants, 4 different kinds of plants, 6 plants total. Does he need to go in there and slurry all of them?
No, I mean, I would be slurring at least once a week, at least 2 of them, just as a reference. And I'd change them up. So today I'm doing A and B this week. Everything's fine. I'm not going to worry about the other 4 because they're showing 0 signs of anything stressful. Next week I'm going to check C and D because there's nothing wrong. Nothing, you know. The only time I really start to worry is if I see something in F, then I'm going to go check A, B, and C to make sure they're not starting to see the same issues as F. You know, only time I check them all is if I'm seeing an issue with the 1 to make sure I'm not going to see a trend with everything. If everything's perfect, once a week slurries and spot checking, not every single one. Because they should all be in some form of parallel in the sense of what's happening pH and parts per million wise. So if everything's looking great, I would only be checking 1 or 2 of them every once a week.
So he says different cultivars, but I mean, if you had one of these little short stubbies and one of these long skinnies and stuff like that, you had vastly different plants, you might have an issue. No? Yeah?
But, you might, but only if, you know, you're starting to see issues.
They're in the same environment, I guess what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and that's it, is if it's going to be something occurring in the root zone, it's going to be more widespread than one plant. But everybody who comes is like, your shit's killing my stuff. Here's this one plant that's got all these problems, but the other 97 plants are raging. Well, it's not a nutritional thing. There's something wrong with the one plant. And people can't grasp that concept that if the fertilizer is ruined, look around. Everybody is equally dead. It doesn't selectively dead stuff. It says, I'm rotten, you all die. There is no selection there. It's just done. So if I'm seeing everything starting to show the same signs, something's occurring, I need to investigate. If everything looks freaking awesome, I'm not going to dig through all of their root zones every 3rd day to make sure their slurries haven't gone from 6.5 to 6.4.5. Because I'm not too concerned yet. But if it goes 6.5, 6.5 once a week, I'm testing everything. 2 weeks from now, it's 6.3. Maybe I should check this plant. Oh shit, that's 6.3. That's 6.3. That was 6.6 last week. Okay, something's about to happen. I'm going to try to curb it and get ahead of it. But for the most part, you'll know, even with 4 cultivars, you're going to see a hint from one why the other one looks like shit. And if it doesn't, then there's just something wrong with the one. And sometimes you just get bad genetics.
So I'm doing my slurries not because I'm anticipating danger or some horrible situation. I'm doing them to optimize my situation as I'm going, keep things on track. Then I see one plant going bad. True, I don't have a trend for that plant maybe. I haven't been doing slurries every week, but I'm more likely than not, it's not about the trend. It's about something going on here that I may not be able to fix. Or all the plants would be messed up.
Yeah.
Bugs, maybe.
Yep.
Okay.
Don't want that.
No.
Yeah. The hardiness to do every plant, every time you water and feed, I would quit using my nutrients too, and I'd go 3 parts synthetic because it'd be so much easier not to do all this crap.
Okay.
But when you get in the tune of it, what you do notice is, like, any grower that has used my stuff for 10 years, and in year 5 they decided to go lackadaisy on the slurries in a sense where they, I ran 3 runs without a slurry. They all come back to me and say, you know what the best part about slurries are? They are the single most important thing to make sure I get to the finish line with a win. Because you can fix anything when people see the issue, that happened 3 weeks ago, or 2 weeks ago. And if it happened 2 weeks ago, and now you're going to just now start trying to figure out how to fix it, well, you got 2 weeks. So if you see it, it's 2 weeks old, and you got 2 weeks to cure. If you see it coming, you don't have to sit there and chase. And I hate that chasing game. Corrective issues are so much harder than preventative issues.
Okay. Jacob Swedberg has something to say about that.
I'm sure he does.
If you see no deficiencies, I don't see why you have to slurry at all. That being said, I believe the beard has said you want to see around 300 ppm and the plants are eating well. So,
yeah.
What we just said, basically. You're looking for problems before they become a problem.
If everything looks awesome and I see no deficiencies, I'm testing one plant out of the dozen to make sure my trend is good. If I see, and if that's on point, next time I'm going to test that other plant to make sure that one's on point. And if that one's on point, then I'm not testing them all because they all look freaking awesome. But if 4 of them have yellow tips and intravenous yellowing occurring, well, shit, I probably should have been doing more slurries. And I got to, well, everything's fine. I'm just going to skip slurries this week. Oh, you're doomed because now you have to catch up.
You're anticipating a problem instead of fixing a problem because you may not be able to fix it.
Well, how many times have you gotten that call from the ex-girlfriend where you're going, it's been about 9 months, so wonder what she wants. I don't have any of those.
I don't want to go into that, but I had a strategy for that when I was single.
Yeah.
We're sure before we break up. I don't care what's going on. We ain't breaking up till I know the situation.
Before I know whether or not I have to dig a hole while you're so close to me.
I never had to do that, and I'm not saying I wouldn't have done that, but I'm saying that I don't know that I would do that, and so I did preventative measures for myself so that I would not have to.
Your whole goal was to make sure that you could keep them in the marriage.
I see the mistake I made now. I should have just got him
right. 3 times ago, buddy.
Well, no, actually, it worked out for the best. I was talking about my dating life pre-marriage, but yes, I take your point, Mr. Smarty Pants and Stein.
Now, you're doing fine with what you got now.
Oh, my God.
So far.
We're going to go a couple decades longer if we don't die.
He'll kill you in your sleep.
Oh, I just hope so, because I don't want to be alone.
No, I know. I guarantee it. She's going to look over one day and go, well, you know what? Your time is up.
Fair enough.
All right.
State Road 84. What's up, Statey? He says, sup, Bob? Ironic. I know Scott probably won't like this. But I would like to dive into the different ways to amend nectar soil, primarily number 4. I have noticed problems after a couple of recharges, doing it with with simple WC, biochar, bokashi, and one shot. Oh yeah. So this is the Tim McCormick situation. Since I can't get here to the southeast without driving 2 hours, what my questions are is what ingredients should I amend with? Compost, worm castings, kelp, bone, alfalfa, others. Is it okay composting in a plastic tote? Can I keep it dormant for 5 to 6 months? I know these aren't nectar questions, or are they? Love you guys. Stay safe. Keep on keeping on. So before we even start, you one shot and go, and Tim McCormick, not wrong, just different, puts a whole bunch of stuff in there. The worm castings.
I like the bottles myself, so I don't bother with all the stuff we add in originally, because when we add in, when we add all that in at the beginning of making number 4, the alfalfa, the feather meal, the bow meal, the accelerate, all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's designed to only last 3 to 4 weeks, and you're supposed to be feeding it with our nectar wine. It's not super soil. It's not built up to be water only, start to finish. From all of our tests, the one shot actually does pretty good. I think a lot of people that are adding a ton of bokashi and these different biochars and all this organic matter, which is all fine. It's housing for all the bacteria and life forms. The downfall is all those life forms digest all the food forms that you're putting in, so it's making it go away so much faster. I think if you're running the number 4, adding a little bit more feather meal for nitrogen, we put in about 2 pounds of bone meal per bag, so you figure that piece out. I mean, people re-amend number 4. A lot of people use number 4 as their base to make super soils and re-amend them. So I think it just boils down to like you said, you can look online and find 1,000 soil composting recipes, but it's up to you, your food style. Like, are you feeding bottles? What bottles are you feeding? What aren't you getting in the bottles that you want to supplement with, or are you just trying to recommend number 4 to be a super soil?
So, if I put Bokashi and One Shot into soil, am I not creating a little ecosystem in there where everything's eating itself? It's not dormant, is it? Or is it till a plant comes into it?
Well, I mean, it depends on the moisture content on the soil and the Bokashi when they're blended. If it's got high moisture content, then yes, the bacteria and fungus in the soil is activated.
And it's eating that stuff up.
One Shot's activated. Yeah, they just start eating. And if there's no place to go, they just store it as a parts per million in the soil, so when you first plant, it'll be hotter, but then watering it becomes quite soluble and water right out. So
I gotcha. So
yeah, I like Bokashi, but I like it more as a composter, like old soil, throw it in a bin, throw the Bokashi on there, and then I like to amend, maybe a few weeks, maybe a month before I'm going to plant into it, so I'm not just digesting it all.
Is that more of an outdoor game than when we're indoor bottle feeding? Not so much, no?
No, there's a bunch of growers on our group that are all recycling. They take 30-gallon totes, Rubbermaid totes, they throw them in there for a full, 20-week cycle of their current grow, and they let this stuff recharge in compost. So it just boils down to...
They're not wrong.
Stuffing.
It's not your game.
They're not wrong. Yeah, but it's a style. I mean, it's...
Yeah.
I would email me so we can go back and forth, and I can tell you, levels of what you can and shouldn't apply. But, I don't have just shy of breaking out my actual number 4 recipe for, Down to Earth to steal from me to make their bottom soil. I'm not going to tell you the weights other than we use too much bone meal and plenty of feather.
Okay. Another one from Easy to Slip. He says, "Hi, Bob. Confusion about this particular episode." I hope we can figure out which episode that was because it's not marked here.
Me.
If you are using RO, and if you have noticed the pH drift down in flower stage, then you can use garden lime as a soil amendment a few weeks before switching to flower. This will reduce the delay of the pH drift to acidic. Okay, so far so good. Then Calpro or pelleted limestone, what? What is the different? What is this different than garden lime? Do I Calpro at the beginning when I'm building my soil? Do I need it if I'm doing garden lime before I flip into flower? So this is
So Calpril is garden lime. Down to Earth calls it garden lime.
Yeah.
And all it is limestone. That's it. And so Calpril is just
Okay. We lost Scott here. Hold on a second. Just a second. Hold on a sec. Are you there?
Yeah, well now it won't reconnect to my damn...
Oh, well, I have to call you.
You did, and it goes to this old phone.
Oh,
It doesn't even have a service on it anymore. That's what I don't even understand. It goes to my iPad and this old iPhone 6. Here's my new iPhone that I actually call people on, and that's the computer and the FaceTime we've been working on this whole time.
I'm not thrilled with FaceTime, although they aren't spying on me as far as I can tell.
Yeah, well, at least I know who's on the other side of it.
Okay, so garden...
Basically, Calpril and garden lime from Down to Earth is the identical product with a brown box around the Calpril.
Okay.
Calpro is just, I enunciate because teeth aren't real, so, I don't say Calpril very well.
So
you don't need to use the different types of lime at all. Just use the garden lime from Down to Earth. Calpril is that same exact thing, which would have the exact same application rate. This will reduce the pH drift because your RO water will be stripping the alkalinity from the excess limestone versus from your potting medium, making your medium's pH drop because that extra limestone will prevent that slip from happening.
So we just say the down-to-earth garden lime because we sell it at thocgfam.com and because you can get it almost anywhere. So it's a thing that you can just tell people, but it is the same stuff.
It is. If you're in the West Coast, Calpril, because you can pick up 25-pound bags for what a 6-pound box
Oh, sure. But you don't use that much, right? I mean, the 6-pound box is...
1 cup per 10 gallons. So, I mean, like, I think 1 pound is almost 2 cups. So a pound should cover 2 full bags of soil almost.
And it doesn't go bad if you get the big bag. No,
it's a rock.
It's a rock.
And honestly, like, if you want a better lawn, throw it on your lawn. If you want your vegetables to do better, throw it in your vegetable garden. You want better roses? Throw it in your rose garden. I mean, there isn't a thing that I won't throw limestone on, including blueberries, which they love acid. Yeah, and they also love calcium. So if I have humic acid and fulvic acid and compost and limestone, those things are so sweet.
So I do have one question. If limestone is so prevalent, why are we having to add it? Where is it in our soil? Does it wash out or something? What happens?
No, it is. It's in all soils, but potting soils, nobody... So potting soil companies, most of them are just buying wood products, cheap peat moss, and putting their stuff together and blending it. Maybe some cocoa fiber. They're not grabbing earth from the valley of, if you went out to Willamette Valley, took a shovel and had it analyzed, the amount of calcium carbonate in our soil is through the roof. None of it's available until after the rain hits it. The beautiful thing is, rain is acidic. So we are abundant in calcium in our water systems in the West Coast because it's built into our actual earth. Michigan is built on an entire shelf of limestone. Every bit you kick the soil in underneath that is limestone. So they have an abundance. Arizona has none. Texas is limited. These different regions that have more granites and have more just different mineral content, they're not going to be as high in calcium. Potting soils are all man-made creations. Nobody's just digging up dirt and throwing it in a bag and calling it soil because that would have enough calcium in it. We all have to make it and add what we feel is the most important elements to a plant in a potting mix. So we add a crap ton of calcium limestone because we know plants need it, and most people aren't adding that much in.
Oh, now let me ask you this. Other people that make their soil for maybe growing with synthetic stuff, they're probably to some extent doing the opposite because they're going to be at a low pH when they're growing with their stuff.
Yeah, they're not looking for the delivery of 6.6 like we are. I mean, our calcium in the liquid form is most available at that higher pH. So we need to feed it at a higher pH. We need the root system to be balanced at a higher pH. But if you're synthetically feeding NP and K, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, you're letting the plant absorb it at the time of Passover. So as it's washing over the roots, it's absorbing it right away. The pH is far less important at that because they're not trying to pump calcium in. They're not trying to bond it to anything. They're feeding NP and K. That's why PK boosters are so impressive in the synthetic world because the plants can just take them in 13%, 14%, swells them up overnight because they're just sucking it up like water. Because that's what it is.
Okay.
They're sucking it up as water.
So they're getting fed instantly and then it's gone. So if you stop feeding them, they're not going to keep going. They're just done.
They need that. There's no reserve at that.
I got you.
It's not uncommon to see a potting soil at 5.7 plants thriving, but they're not feeding them a calcium-based nutrient line.
I got you.
And I think that's what breaks most of the minds in our industry is the fact that I can't possibly feed a potting soil that's 5.7 with this nutrient line because calcium, and people are like, what the hell is wrong with people that want to use calcium products? Because that goes against everything we've ever understood in indoor gardening.
Sure. And so they're fudging their numbers thinking this can't be real. It's like the guy when they're flying the plane in the fog and they're upside down and they crash to the ground because they're like, I can't be upside down. They don't realize.
Yeah. Or a snowstorm.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's about it. That's all the questions.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So you hear about Rob?
No. Well, I did. I talked to Carl. You know, you and Carl are my only industry contacts. But he said he was doing okay, right? Is he doing better? No?
Well, I mean, he's making it so far, but it's definitely starting to kick his ass, that cancer is. So,
okay. So he's
starting to do some more auctions for him again, and, you know, just kind of, just let everybody know that knows Rob from Full On, that, you know, put an extra prayer out there for the guy, and those who give vibes, because he's having to struggle with the chemo right now. It's kicking his ass.
So he's in the middle of it, whether for good or bad. He's right in the middle of the hardest part of it. This is the crucial fighting time.
This is the part that I don't think he was anticipating. When he first started, man, that guy went in like the Hulk. It's just like, I'm going to destroy this, and I'll be doing this by Tuesday.
Yeah.
Now you're like, okay, buddy, you know, bless your heart, just get through it at this
Do
point.
the work.
So,
yeah.
But, you know, keeping him out in everybody's minds, he's out there, and he's putting out a big battle. So if you see an auction, you're like, we put up a bunch of stuff, and Green Grow put a bunch of stuff up on auction. You know, that's literally 100% of that's going to Rob to help him just get through this time. His income is really low right now. He doesn't have a lot of, you know, reserve dollars to really. He lives in California, so just buying gas can make you go bankrupt down there.
No, he was struggling a little bit to keep things going. He was trying to build, and so it caught him at it's never a good time, but
it isn't.
Yeah.
So if you see the auctions, Carl Gork is putting them out on Facebook. I think he has. Do you know what the name of his thing is? Isn't it?
Well, it's Northwest Grind is his company, and then I don't know what the auction is though.
It's a compassion. I'm gonna pull it up just so I don't sound like a total moron. Come on.
Cultivate kindness. We are boarding.
There you go. Thank you.
Okay, we are back on board.
Kindness.
Oh, I see him. He's doing a video with the Green Grow.
Yeah, Mark.
Yep.
Mr. Personality himself.
Mark's got his glasses on in the video. Looks like he's got little horns.
I know. So we're selling like the bloom pack there with some Chimera. We got a full run of Greek in 2.5 gallons, I think. So 12 pounds of one shot being auctioned. We'll ship them all out of here. If you do watch this show, you get on there and you do an auction, I'll throw in a hoodie to any auction you win. So all you have to do is say, I saw it on the OCG Fam show. If you win the auction and you mention this show, I'll throw in a Nectar hoodie, maybe not one like this. Damn phone. But, you know, maybe one like Bob. There you go. So that'll be what we'll do for anybody who mentions this if they win the auction.
Nice.
And other than that, you know, just getting through another week.
That's all we can do.
Oh, and then be warned.
I'm ready.
I know, I'm not. I'm stressing.
What?
So we have been waiting for 250,000 imprints of number 4 bags from our bag producer, which was supposed to be printed on the 24th. Only to find out that they called us on the 24th to let us know they're trying to find a spot to fit us into their production.
Oh, motherfucker.
So adults only. So we put this order in November when they told us we needed an 8-week lead time. So we got on the books for the 24th with the shipping date of yesterday to find out that it didn't happen. So we are in panic mode. Basically what we're going to possibly do is you're going to see generic black and white bags again as the number 4 with the number 4 label on the back. We're not telling our distributors. We're just letting them go through. Get to the stores, there'll be a note on each pallet explaining the situation. We've already dealt with a few stores like Skunk Grow in Oklahoma and a big store down in California just saying, hey, listen, this, if you don't care, it's going to come in with our old-fashioned generic black and white bags.
Throwbacks!
Yeah, the good old days. Exactly. This is retro stuff.
You should have done it that way. Glass half full. This is throwback time. Good news. The old bags.
Don't worry. Except for the regulation piece, it's a nightmare because we have to hand sticker each one with a label.
Oh, God.
So it's going to suck. And Monday we find out exactly how bad it's going to be. We still have plenty of number 8. Right now we've got like 450 pallets of black and white ready to go. They're making it every day, and we only have 70 pallets of number 4 in the new bag. So
holy
those
moly.
are all spoken for. Every single one of them's on order. So we're just trying to find, anybody who's buying direct from us or is getting larger quantities. We're just reaching out to them beforehand to let them know, hey, we got the soil. It's still fresh. Everything's on point. The bags are just not here yet. So we can get you bags. So if your store is finding they can't get it, they can get it from us. They may not be able to get it from the distributor. We'll see. We'll fill you in next week when we know more of what's happening. But right now it's been a long-ass Friday.
Same bad time, same bad channel. I'm going to get copyrighted for that.
Now now they're going to drop the channel. We
Just
might
the
as well
title.
throw out boobs now.
Yeah. Try to have Marvel on your ass. Oh, it's not good. That's the show. Yes, right?
That's it. Sweet.
All right.